Welcome to the One Player Podcast, the show on solitaire board games. This is your host, Albert, and this is episode 350.
Meow, 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 meow.
Hi, Julius. How are you doing? Welcome back.
Welcome. Welcome back, Albert. Take two.
Take two, yes.
Try it again.
Not that we're going to talk about it, but somebody forgot to hit record last time, and so we're doing this one again. And it's a totally different show than last time.
For the listeners, the last one was great. It was golden.
Best episode yet.
Oh, best episode yet. I mean, we're probably going to come back and do it, but it was IP. So we decided to have that discussion. Albert got hoisted by his own petard a time or two. It was great.
And that won't happen again. That's why I forgot to hit record, I think.
But today we are talking about animal games, and we are going to be ranking our most animal games. The most animal games. And I'm very interested to hear how Albert is going to start defining what is the most animal.
That's right. And just to clear it up for new listeners, this is a popular mechanic show where we pick a theme and talk about games that fit that theme. Usually a game mechanic. This time it happens to be more of a theme than a mechanic. But that is okay. And what we do is we each pick 3 games that match that category, and we talk about it, and tell you about those great solo games. So Indeed. What is an animal game? Technically it's any game that features animals in it, right? It can't just have an animal.
It's got to feature animals.
You can't just have a horse in the card, right? Oh, one of the cards is a little picture of a horse in the background. No, that's not an animal game. It's got to feature the animal.
Agricola, for example, is not going to be the most animal game because it's not really featuring. It's not distinctively an animal because those are just mere resources mixed together with all the other resources. Doesn't count.
I like how you just shut down one of my games before we started, Julius. Nice.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because I went through and I had to pare down my list of some things that just don't count.
Really? I had to shoehorn a couple in to make it work. Because, I said, Julius likes animal games a lot more than I know you like animal games because you've talked about a bunch of them before.
Uh-huh. I've even got curious 2 on the list that I think maybe even I could do a full 3 that I have not yet actually reviewed on the podcast.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it was a stretch, and I couldn't even think of an RPG that I've played that is considered an animal game. And usually RPGs are great because they could be anything. But I didn't really have. I kind of did, but no.
I did have 2 other restrictions on my list though that I put in.
Okay.
The other restriction I had on my list was that it had to be an actual animal that exists. It may be an anthropomorphized version of that animal, but an actual animal that exists. Dragons are not animals.
Yeah, so, I was tempted to include Flamecraft. I said, no, that's not really an animal.
Flamecraft and Flame and Fang both got cut out because they're dragons and not animals. I didn't consider dragons or unicorns or other things like that. They aren't considered animals. I also cut out the boss one, whatever it was, because of those ones, it's again, they're not real animals. They're minions. So like jellies and owl bears and things like that are not real animals. Even if they're animals in Dungeons and Dragons, those are not real animals. So I didn't include any of that list. Okay.
I gave myself one other restriction. I excluded games where you're hunting animals. And specifically, I was thinking of a couple fishing games. I said, it doesn't feel like an animal game.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
They're not cuddly and cute when you're like catching them and skinning them.
The other restriction that I had was that it had to be that the animal was not just a key portion of an expansion, but a key portion of the game itself. So the 2 that I had originally had on my list, you're familiar with The Loop, yes?
Yes, I remember that. That was an interesting game.
It is a very good cooperative game, in my opinion, where you are time travel people who are running around a time travel board and trying to fight off the evil Dr. Fu or Dr. Fo, however it is that you pronounce it. But there are 2 expansions for The Loop. One of them is the Fur Brigade, and in the Fur Brigade, you have a fully animal group that comes and joins you. So there's a cat and a dog that come and join. So that is a very animal expansion, but I did not consider that because it's only animal in its expansion. Another animal expansion.
I wish there was an expansion called A Very Animal Expansion. That's a great title for an expansion.
That is a very good one. Actually, I have to remember that. The other one that I didn't include is Arkham Horror, the card game, at one point in time, they put out a special set.
Oh, yes.
Yes, they put out a special set as, I'm not quite sure, I don't know what it was for. It was originally raising money for some charity. I cannot remember.
But originally, it was just an April Fool's gag that they did, right? On April Fool's, they announced an expansion, and then they did it. The people liked it so much, they went ahead and actually made it.
Whatever the reason was, it was raising money for a charity. So they released an expansion called Barkham Horror, where they had a cats versus dogs or dogs versus cats version of Arkham Horror, where you were playing as anthropomorphized dogs against evil anthropomorphized cat cultists. And it is very insane. Very weird. What?
Yeah, it is. Isn't there a Meowlathotep or something like that?
Yes, that is exactly, that is the ancient evil for that one. But again, it is only in the expansion, and even though it is very animal, I have discounted it as being very animal.
Well, yeah, I had forgotten about those. I don't think I would have included them, though. That maybe they're good. They are interesting choices. Before we start talking about our games, so there is a contest to resolve, which I had talked about it a few weeks ago. I'm giving away a copy of Ragemore. It was donated by a listener who entered in the last Lighthouse contest before that, which these are both ButtonShy games. It was from Julie, her user Zoho. She had this copy of this game. She didn't really like it, so she gave it to me to do something with. And so I'm giving it away. 3 people entered in this contest. So there's only 3 entries, so your odds of winning are pretty good if you're one of those 3. If you're not, they're pretty bad. Sorry. So let me tell you the 3. All you had to do to enter this contest was tell me you wanted to be in the contest and tell me something interesting. The first person is Dean. And what did he tell me? I had all the notes for this, and I cannot find my notes, so I'm going off my geek mail. And we're doing, contest. Here we go again. And
that's
so
what happens when you don't push the record button, Albert.
Oh, yeah. I had the notes last week. They're somewhere in here. Somewhere. I don't know. And I took these notes when I was traveling up in upstate New York, so I did it in a notebook somewhere. Anyway, he told me about a game called Mind the Mushrooms, which is, he stumbled upon it in a comic shop in St. John's, Newfoundland. And it's apparently that's where the creator of the game lives. And it's an 18-card micro game, I believe, if I remember correctly. So he's played that a bunch. He's got a way of a head start. Sounds neat. Game about mushrooms. Can't go wrong, right? That was the first person. The second person is Shai Levari. He sent information about dogs. Apparently, when dogs lick your faces, they're licking it as a sign of respect. They lick the face of people to say they want food or thank them for their food. And so when they're licking your face as a pet, they're saying, "Hey, you're the person that has my food. Lick down to you, whatever." So that was that piece of information. I actually shared that 2 or 3 times after I learned about it. So that was actually pretty neat, useful information. The third one is Tyler, who told me about bacteria and gut health. Or actually, he told me about gut health. And I think I made some other comments about bacteria. Let me see what he says exactly. Yeah, the gut can have a huge effect on your overall health, and I can vouch to that because whenever I don't feel well in my stomach, because I suffer from gastrointestinal stuff once in a while, it really just knocks me out. And as soon as it passes, I just, oh my gosh, I feel like a new man. So yes, 3 interesting pieces of information. So Julius, I need you to roll a D3 and tell us who won, number 1, 2, or 3, in the order I mentioned.
D6.
I just need to know the 1, 2, or 3. You do whatever math you want on your end.
You made things so complicated. Well, I rolled a 6, so that would be a 3.
Okay, well then congratulations to Tyler. Send me an email with your address and I'll send out the game to you. And also, about the last Lighthouse contest, I've reached out to the person that won that one. I have not heard back yet. Please geekmail or email me so that I could send you your copy of the game. Geekmail to Fractaloon, and let me tell you who the winner was, because, like I said, I have not heard from them. I've emailed them once, or geekmailed them once. And I guess if I don't hear from you soon, whatever that means, I'm going to reach out to another person. This was Joseph, BGG user 0 number. Send me a geek mail. Let me know who you are so I can send this to you. All right. Animals, Julius. Animals.
I am ready,
I will
Albert.
go first because you already spoiled my first one. You already said it doesn't count. So my first game is actually a game about farming, which isn't strictly about animals, but features animals primarily. It's Agricola.
It's not really featured that primarily. It's kind of just like maybe a half or less of the game.
Well, half of the game is, it's
just
maybe
one
not primarily,
resource
but it's half
among
the game.
many.
Yes, but it's a game about farming, and there's a lot of animals, and you're placing the animals. It's a big part of the game, undoubtedly. You're placing animals in fields and little pens, and you're building fences for them, and they have babies every few seasons or whatever, if you have enough of them, so you get to increase your livestock. And it is a fun part of the game. And if you get the expansion with the horses, there's even more animal. Right? It goes from 3 to 4 types of animals. And I think it's a fun game. I tried thinking of, because other games that had animals in it where you're taking care of the animals and doing stuff, and really none other came to mind to this level of, I thought, detail. There's other Uwe Rosenbergs that have animals in them. Like, recently I talked about, was it Fields of Aro and Hallertau? And Fields of Aro had animals, but it wasn't quite as many or as detailed. They weren't as prominent in the game as they are in this one. There's also, I guess, Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small, and that's a little more animalish, but there's fewer types of animals. So I thought this is a better choice. Because it's fun. You're playing with the little animals in this game. And that's just neat. So that's my first one, Agricola. A game Julius is thinking is probably not such a good fit for this category.
I had already predetermined that to be a poor fit for this category and had just cut it out from my list.
And yet, I went in knowing my fate. because what was I to do?
Well, I'm going to pick New York Zoo for my first one. In New York Zoo...
That's also Uwe Rosenberg, isn't it?
It is, which is one of the reasons why I'm picking it to follow yours and changing my original order. A
Just to
better choice if you're looking for a more thinky Uwe Rosenberg game and trying to get a very animal game would be New York Zoo. In New York Zoo, it is a polyomino game where you are selecting tiles to build enclosures in your zoo board. And then you are going to be picking one of 4 different meeples for animals, and there's a whole pile of the animal meeples. There's kangaroos, there's penguins, there's wolves, there's flamingos, and there's also I'm not looking. I'd have to open the box to figure out the last one. There's a 5th one also, but you have these animal meeples, and you're putting them on the board and filling up your spaces. When you fill up a whole space, you get a bonus tile, so you might get a ride or a stand or something like that. First person to fill up the whole board wins, and when you're playing solo, you're just trying to get as fast as you can before you run out of tiles, because the elephant meeple, a big elephant meeple, is continually going around the board, and that restricts what it is that you might be able to have. You only get to select between the animals or the tiles that are 3 away from the elephant. When you're playing solo, the elephant keeps on moving along and keeps on stealing your stuff. So you have to be able to get your zoo complete before the elephant gets all the stuff eaten up in his crunchy fashion as he continues to walk around the board. It is very animal. You will love all the cute animals. I know that I put stickers on all of my meeples to make them look even more adorable. You have a whole pile of animals throughout the game. Animals are the prime resource. It's all about the zoo. So many cute animals in New York Zoo. A very animal game, not just merely a little bit of animal game. A very animal game by Uwe Rosenberg.
So more than half animal, you think?
I'd say like 90% animal. There's a giant elephant. He's marching around crushing stuff.
Yeah, I haven't played this one. If I had, maybe I would have picked it. It definitely sounds like you get to play with animal meeples a lot more, because I know this has more animal meeples. It has like 180 or something, if I remember right. Some huge number of them. Agricola just doesn't have quite as much. So yeah, so for animal fun, I think you're right. This is a better Uwe Rosenberg choice, and it's also thinky, you say. Though I will tell you what, I don't think I'm a huge fan of polyomino games. I think they're okay, but sometimes I find them a little frustrating.
Well, you and I differ on that. I enjoy polyomino games. Yeah. I have quite a few in my collection.
Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed some, but yeah, I think it's not my favorite. I don't know.
Just not a Tetris
Well,
type
that was
person.
a good choice, Julius. Definitely, yes, it trumped mine, and I am comfortable admitting that.
Well, let's see if you could try again, second time around.
Okay, so my second game is actually a game that I talked about recently when you weren't around. It's a ButtonShy game. Talking about ButtonShy games again. It's part of the Simply Solo series, and it is Food Chain Island.
Food Chain Island?
Yes. Are you familiar with this one?
I am familiar with this one. I don't own a copy of it, but I've looked at it a number of times.
Oh, it's a fun little puzzle game, really. You lay out a 18 cards on the table. Actually, you don't. It's not 18 that go out there because a couple of them are other things. Probably 16 or so on the table. And they each are an animal numbered from. Well, the first one's a 0 is a plant. The rest are all animals, numbered from 1 up to 15. That's right, going up sequentially. And the way you play, you lay them out randomly, and then on each turn, an animal could eat an animal with a lower number. So and they're thematic. So the biggest number is like the biggest animals, and the low numbers are little tiny insects and that sort of thing.
And but 0 is a plant, so you clearly have plants.
0 is a plant, but yeah, and they don't eat anything. Plants don't really eat other stuff. So it is the bottom of the food chain. And so you could eat a smaller animal. There's certain restrictions. It has to be adjacent, and the number can only be up to 2 lower, maybe 3 lower. I don't remember offhand.
It depends on the animal.
So, yeah, but no. Generally, always the number that you're eating from to the animal that you're eating to has to be within a range of 3. There's other rules that can apply as you eat stuff. Each animal has a special rule on it. So when you use it, the rule may say, "Oh, the next animal can eat diagonally," or "Move one animal card on the board a certain number of spaces," or different things to alter the layout in the game and how it's going to play. It's a big puzzle game where you're eating card after card after card, hoping to finish the game with just one card left, really, to get the ultimate win. And it's a really interesting puzzle game. I really enjoy it. All the animal cards are cute, though they are eating each other on the cards. So like I don't remember which animal is which, but say the lion has a tiger being thrown into his mouth. Cutely so, but yeah. And then the tiger will have something
all of them
smaller
with the X's over their eyes to show that they're all dead.
Yes. And it's, card 15 is eating the animal pictured on card 14, but now it's dead in card 15. And card 14 is eating whatever's on card 13, and so on down to the ant eating the plant on card 0. So yeah, Food Chain Island, all about animals. There's also expansions for it, and there's other types of animal cards like flying animals, water animals that work differently, but yeah, lots of animals.
I will get you this one. This was a very good choice. I've enjoyed many of my ButtonShy games. I don't think I have a lot of them in my collection, mostly because they're awkward to store, and I feel like I'd rather
so easy
play.
To store.
Yeah,
they fit in a box.
Not if I don't have a special box for them. So each one individually just becomes awkward to store, and then they just sort of sit around and just look messy. And I tend to prefer bigger games, I suppose. I don't need to have a game that comes around with me. So I haven't had a huge draw for wanting to play them, but they are very good to play. This one I've looked at a number of times. Like, well, maybe I could just get this one or the Baker one. There's a good number of the ButtonShy games that I would love to try. And this is certainly one of the ones that I would like to try. I think it looks really good, and I think it's a good choice for a very animal theme.
I think it's my favorite in the Simply Solo series. It's by Scott Alms. It should mention that.
He's got a fair number, I believe.
He does, yes, of ButtonShy games and solo games in general.
So my second game is an older one by Keith Mateka and Thunderworks Games. It is Bullfrogs. Bullfrogs.
I wondered if you would bring that one up.
I did.
I thought about that.
This is one of the ones that was the first thing that I reviewed back on the One Player Podcast, actually. Bullfrogs, you have, if you're playing multiplayer, you are one of 4, but you're one of 4 different clans of frogs, and each of you have your own set of lily pads, and your job is to rule the lily pads. You will put out each of your frogs in various different spaces. When a lily pad fills all the way up, it sinks, and whoever has won the war for the lily pad claims the points for it, and everyone else has to flee back to another lily pad and try to score again next time. You keep playing them and hope that you score enough to be able to get more points than your opponent. When you're playing solitaire, the game comes with 2 dice, and you play against Isaac, which is the designer's I think it was Isaac, but you play against the designer's child officially. But you have these dice that determine how much cards, how much the value of their cards is, how many frogs they're moving, where it is that they're moving their frog. So you use these dice to be able to determine it. It's kind of like a very randomized automa, but it very well makes an opponent that is maybe a little bit random, but is a good method of playing. I've enjoyed the look and style of the game. It's still a game that comes out less so for solo, more so for multiplayer. But even the solo game is still very good. It still has a place in my collection. So I think it works. It has bullfrogs perhaps doing things you wouldn't normally have them do, carrying around giant axes and going at each other. So this is moving into the anthropomorphized version of animals, but is a very enjoyable animal game. It is bullfrogs.
Nice. Now, if I remember correctly, though, the solo for that is an expansion that you'd have to buy, where it brings the dice and the rules, I think.
It is an expansion. It is a very easily accessible expansion. I believe you're still able to find it. Even if not the instructions, it's a one-page instruction. You can just use 2d6 to be able to simulate that. And it came with the original one when you got it, so it's still out there.
Okay, I had bought the. Did you get it on Kickstarter or something? Maybe I bought it, but it did not bring dice.
On Kickstarter.
Okay, yeah. I think I had bought the first edition, but it did not have dice, and I had to buy them separately.
Yeah,
is what I recall. But yeah, irrelevant. Yeah, that's a neat one. I like the look of that game a lot. I really do. Kind of creepy frogs. The newer version looks a little cuter. I don't like the art
my
as
version
much.
Looks less cute. They did another one with a slightly cuter box, and I prefer the grittier frogs on mine.
I agree. All right. My third game, I struggled coming up with a third one, but I said to put this in anyway because it works. It's the Animals of Baker Street, which we talked about recently. It's definitely an animal game, and if you like animals, this has a lot of animals, and you get to play as animals and read animal stories and interact with a lot of animals. It's all about animals solving mysteries. Super animal game. I didn't want to pick it because I didn't love it. If you remember, I didn't find it was really quite for me. So I didn't want to pick it as a game I would personally recommend, but it very animal and animal friendly and interesting animal stories. It's so different than any other game, right? It's a storytelling game that you can't lose in, and you're exploring and visiting different places and trying to solve puzzles and reading a lot. It's a lot of reading, a lot of interaction with that mystery. So
yeah, I certainly think that's a good animal game. It's got a whole group of animals. It's a story all about animals. I think it counts as
100% animals there.
I can't attest to any of the quality of it, but I hear you like it.
Yeah, and my only issue was I didn't enjoy the story. I thought the gameplay was interesting and all that. I was not excited to keep playing it, but I think others might like it. So I want to at least mention it.
So I was laughing at your comment that you had to work hard to find one. As I made my list, I have 3 more left. And it was a very difficult decision for me to figure out which one I wanted to include as the third one in my list. So I'm going to go through all 3 of them and tell you about the runner-ups first and tell you why I didn't include them. So the first runner-up was Honeybuzz. Honeybuzz is, again, not one that I think we've talked about on the podcast, but it is primarily an economic game. You are a set of bees that are making and selling honey. Every time you take a turn, you're doing a worker placement where you're taking a number of bees, putting them on a spot to claim one of 7 different action double hexes. And these double hexes, you'll claim it, and then you'll put it on your board to continue to build out your beehive. Every time you form a closed cell, so the double hexes will keep going until they close in a full cell, you'll be able to take all of the actions that are around that closed cell. And those actions may be to sell your honey, that may be to go collect a honey-making tile, it may be to pick up a new bee so you have more workers, it may be to produce honey on your honey-making tiles, all sorts of different 7 different actions that you can do. You'll keep racing around the board, trying to be able to make honey and sell honey and gain as much money as possible until the game ends when there's no more recipes left. When you're playing solo, there's a special solo set of bees that will block access to some of the spaces and just randomly sometimes take sales on the board. So essentially removing the opportunity for you to sell if you're going too slow. You're racing against it to gain the highest score, make as much money as possible before the end of the game. It is a very good economic game, but I did not include it because it's an economic game, and that could have just been, there's nothing animal about it other than it happens to be a cute theme. Really, it's all about the honey. So I didn't include it.
But you couldn't resist talking about it nonetheless.
But I absolutely couldn't resist talking about it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that again, even. The next one that I didn't include is Defenders of the Wild. Defenders of the Wild is a recently released cooperative game where there are these machines, this melding of magic and machinery that have started to take over and destroy the wild. And you have to form a clan of anthropomorphic animals to fight off the machines. So it's a cooperative war game style thing where you are running around the board fighting off these machines using a hand of cards as organizers and action selection to be able to destroy machines, destroy walls, rewild factories. It is an excellent melding of mechanics to fight this cooperatively fight this war against the machines, hoping to finish them before they finish you. It is an excellent style game. It just barely doesn't make the list, even though it's really good. It's still very new. I actually am working on getting enough plays of it in to be able to do a full review of it. So hopefully it's coming soon. But it just barely nudges it out because, again, it just didn't quite have the very animal in comparison to my last theme. Even though it's a bunch of animals and they're running around and it's making a cute theme, it's all about the war and the action selection. It doesn't convey animal in what it's doing nearly as much as my last game, which I'm going to do right now.
So there's a couple of games that it could be that I can think of that I know you played and really liked. So I'm curious. I'm sure it's got to be one of these two.
Which two do you think it's going to be?
Both of them. Either it's Cascadia or it's the one... I don't remember what the name was, but there's one where you are rolling dice and playing animals on a grid.
Rolling dice and playing animals on a grid?
That's what I recall. There was a grid and you put the different animals on it in different places. I don't know. Tell me the game and I'll tell you if that's what I was thinking of.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Because I also didn't do Cascadia. I didn't do Isle of Cats. Neither of those made it on. Isle of Cats maybe could have, but I thought it was humorous instead to do this one. And Cascadia, because the animals, again, they're not really a major part of it. They're kind of just too static to really be included, so I didn't even think about that one. The one that I picked that you probably have not even heard about before, because I've not mentioned it, is Nekojima.
Oh, okay.
Nekojima. Nekojima is a dexterity game where you are building these power poles. So you have these tall wooden, these tall wooden cylinders with pieces of rope going between them. And each turn you're going to roll a random die and pull out from the cat bag some colors of cats. Those will determine which pole you have to put out. And the cat bag will determine where the cats have to go. There are these punchboard cats with these tails and there's paws in various different places, and you have to balance the cats on the wires and keep building up taller and taller without having the cats fall over, touch the ground, or without having your whole construction fall apart. When I play this, just it brings to mind all the wild cats, the Aristocat type things, or the wild cats from Disney movies, as they're building out to just sort of sing their song in concert across these electric poles. So it is it gains bonus points for being a type of game that I don't think we talk about very much. I don't think we have very much dexterity that we talk about here. It often
I don't think we ever have, not yet.
Yeah, it often doesn't range up in terms of solo friendly, and the cats are very cat. The cats look like cats. They mess around with your board like the most troublesome cats ever. I've talked to these cats. If I place them down, and then as I turn around to roll the die, one of the cats tilts over and just gets in the absolute way. So even though they're cardboard cats, they are so good at being cats that I just felt like this had to be included in the very animal series of the One Player Podcast there. Nekojima, that is my third game.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. That's funny. I hadn't heard of that one. I thought the other game I thought you were going to talk about was Endangered. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying again, but again, Endangered feels like you're really playing a lot more with all the actions and things like that. I guess that could have been another option. You're right. You're right.
When I was looking through my list, I came across For Northwood, which, I would have included that one if I thought of it. That's a fun little animal game.
Yeah.
But, did not, alas.
So many good options.
Yeah. So, a question, though. Would you have considered Jurassic Park,
no,
the Isla Nublar game, an animal game?
I did not. I didn't mention them when I was doing Dragons, but I did take out any Jurassic Park type games. There's also is it Draftosaurus? No, there's a different one. That's a
Draftosaurus. Such a funny name.
Yeah, well,
yeah. I mean, I can see Jurassic Park not working because it's a bit of a fantasy, right? There aren't dinosaurs today. There might be in the future, I guess, but there aren't today.
Yeah.
But if it was a prehistoric game, would you count it? Would you have counted if it was a million years ago kind of game?
With dinosaurs? Dinosaurs from a million years ago?
Yes. Would you consider that an animal game, or is that too far in the distant past?
Probably not. I just don't consider dinosaurs as when we talk about animals. I'm just not including that as animals.
Okay, you're thinking modern animals more.
Yeah, that's really what I'm restricting it to.
I was curious. Just curious. All right. Well, this was a roaring good game, Julius, or podcast. I'm glad we got to talk about animals.
Very good, Albert. You got me on that one. All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.